Hi, Dan Goodstein here with the Outsourcing Institute. I'm joined with our co-chairs from our recent Digital Convergence Conference, Anupam Govil, partner at Avasant, and Gregory North, who heads up our digital transformation practice here at the Outsourcing Institute. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good morning, Dan.
So we just wrapped up the Digital Convergence Conference, and you guys were instrumental in not only putting together the program for the event, but really part of the team helping us figure out where the industry is going and how to help organizations with this enterprise transformation and digitization challenge, right? So, Anupam, let me start with you. I mean, you've been involved in our events for many, many years now, and they've always been around technology and innovation. But what was different about this one?
Yeah, good morning, Gregory and Dan. So I think this conference was a culmination of different trends that have been bubbling up to the surface across our industry. And we've had a number of conferences on the impact of technology, on the impact of, BPO, and the impact of digital. And it was time to focus on how to bring these different means together to enable transformation in companies that need to become digital. So it brought together a very holistic approach, and we had speakers and topics that really covered the whole gamut and enabled our audience to look at digital from an end-to-end perspective. How do you become digital? By transforming your digital experiences, by transforming your operating model, and also transforming your business model. So I thought that was the main sort of difference with this conference in the way we presented these topics and forced our audience to look at the whole spectrum of digital in a very holistic way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And Gregory, you and I have been talking extensively over the last year about this idea that outsourcing isn't what it used to be, and that was our goal for this event. So did you see that playing out, that kind of that transformation, if you will?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things that was very encouraging was there was this question hanging over the industry of how proactive the traditional outsourcing players would be in crafting what would be the vision for digital transformation going forward. And also on the buy side, to what extent you were going to see a open welcoming of that and an engagement with their strategic partners to think about what are the processes most worth automating, where should we start, how to get very significant step function improvement. I think it was really gratifying to hear in the conference from both sides that the teams were leaning together and leaning forward to rethink the way it could get done, and that is what you'd expect. Organizations that have had relationships with each other for, in some cases, 10 years, now they're thinking about the next 10 years and what the digital vision is going to look like.
Yeah, and Gregory, you alluded to kind of the difference between where the buyers are and where the sellers are. Did you get any sense from the event as to who was more advanced or who was pushing this agenda? I mean, if you think about some of the olden days of outsourcing, there was always this debate about who should push the innovation agenda. So is that changed based on the conversations you had at the event?
I would say it's not buyers or sellers, and be interested in Anupam's thoughts about this as well. It's more, there are leaders in both groups who are out front, who are attempting to rethink the way they're going to do work, and they're looking across the aisle saying, I need my partners who've been with me to continue to work with me on this. We had one particular very successful talk that was about how a major international company said, let's work together with their key suppliers, and it was really heartening to hear that.
Yeah, Anupam, I know at least personally a few times this idea more and more of a partner ecosystem. Did you see the same?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think organizations today have to be agile in the way they approach the market, in the way they pivot to address these opportunities. And they also need to be asset light. So what that implies is that companies, in order to compete and to become a digital enterprise, need to think about stitching together an ecosystem of partnerships that enables that transformation. We call that digital ecosystem partnerships, where you're bringing together the platform providers, the infrastructure providers like AWS, Microsoft, and the others, and you combine them with companies that are driving innovative applications. You combine them with system integrators and service providers who are actually able to take those tools and technologies and create the pillars of that digital enterprise. So really, what has evolved is this sort of a very converged approach today, as opposed to looking at just transformation within the IT tower or within the BPO tower, or just patching on a digital front end to an organization. The idea today is for everyone to work together in concert to enable this journey.
Yeah, one of the things that I heard, it's funny, the space has kind of evolved, right? It used to be about people and kind of process, and then in recent years, I think it's become a lot about technology. And I originally thought this was going to be a technology conference, but as we got closer and closer and had these conversations with my members, it seemed like people were trying to figure out the right mix between people and technology. So Anupam, do you think people wins, or is it still a combination of the two?
Well, it still starts with people, because it's important to realize that digital is both an inside out and an outside in phenomenon. The drivers for this transformation are both the fact that your consumers and your consumers' consumers, or your customers' customers, are changing the way they absorb information, the way they transact, the way they like to get that experience of a product or a service. And hence, people have to be at the center of this transformation in the sense of visioning the journey or the experience that they need to have, and then redesigning your whole enterprise, from the front end to the middle office to the back office to the IT infrastructure underlying it, so that they get this seamless experience. And the company is able to leverage a lot of the data across the value chain to make the right decisions, to streamline and optimize, right? And the inside out phenomenon also is driven by the fact that today's workforce is, as it gets younger and younger, they don't want to do the same routine chores over and over again. They want to be better in terms of the productivity, in terms of the value they add. So tools like AI and automation are going to address this emergence of the digital workforce. So it's both an inside in and outside in, inside out and outside in phenomenon. And people are still at the center of it, but now technology is coming and augmenting their skills and abilities.
Yeah, I think if I could build on that, Anupam and Dan, one of the things that was exciting for me at the conference was the degree to which people really got this idea that Anupam's talking about, that in our personal lives, we come to expect on our smartphone an app that allows us to have a transformative experience in our personal lives compared to what we had 3 years ago, 5 years ago. These capabilities didn't even exist. Now we take them completely for granted. So if I'm driving down the street and I'm thinking about where am I going to eat dinner, I can actually make the reservation based on a selection of different information about where's the best place to eat. And I'm doing all this while I'm driving. It's all hands-free. And that level of agility, mobility, information access, task management, and execution, and advice and insight is all available to me personally. When we ask the question, are business processes that we have at work, are the application platforms we use at work, anything like the kind of experience that we have when we're using our smartphones? The answer is clearly at this point no. However, there is this zeitgeist now that says it's time to appify work. It's time to move forward and provide that same level of ease of use, user and customer centricity in the experience. And I think everybody's turbocharged to think about how to make that happen.
In the stage at the beginning of the event and giving some context as to where we are and what we wanted to accomplish, but you also made a comment that you're not an expert in the sense that everybody's learning and nobody's got it all figured out. So I'm curious as to what did you learn? What did you personally learn from the experience?
Was that for Anupam or me?
Sorry, for you, Gregory.
Okay, what did I personally learn? What I learned was that there are leading companies out there on the buy side that are opening kimono and they are saying to their key suppliers, come in, work with us, help us create a 10x experience for our user community, our employees inside the business. We'll give you an incubator to play with. We'll give you an opportunity to rethink the way work is done. You'll keep the IP, and we will keep the step function experience change that you're going to bring to us. That kind of challenging combined with partnering of your strategic supplier base, something that's going to really energize the most innovative and proactive BPO companies, because they're going to be able to take that hand and they're going to be able to make a big difference in the industry going forward. I think that was the thing that I didn't know was happening, but now that I can see this happening, it's very, very exciting.
Right. Anupam, how about you? Any surprises maybe from your standpoint?
Well, there were, I wouldn't say surprises, but certainly several revelations through the conference around how companies are making this shift to becoming a digital enterprise. And at the basis of it is the fact that they're looking, the way they're kind of bringing together different tools and technologies, from big data to analytics to automation to AI, and then leveraging tools such as IoT to provide more intelligence across the enterprise and leverage it to serve the customers better, or to improve their products, or to optimize their operations. And I think the starting keynote by Tony from Procter & Gamble was a great example of it. This is such a traditional organization that is transforming, and they've learned that just doing things the way it has worked in the past is not going to work. And using that combination of design thinking and agile and Lean Six Sigma, they're able to reinvent themselves and create this digital operating model. So there was some success. There's some great examples, I think, throughout the conference that exhibited how different companies are taking these approaches to really, as an imperative to succeed and to survive in this digital age.
And I guess, Dan and Anupam might add one more thing. We kind of mentioned this a moment ago with the consumer remark you made, Anupam, but I was surprised the number of times the word customer came up during the day. Customer focus, the digital transformation, customer experience. It really became the center of the conference to some extent, because it wasn't about the technology. It was about the experience of people using the technology. And ultimately, I think that digital convergence, if you have to put something at the center, it's the center is the customer.
Thank you. So I want to, for those who weren't at the event, which could be a good percentage of the people watching this, trying to figure out what's going on in the space and what they missed, maybe we can share just a couple brief highlights. Anupam, you mentioned a panel on the new age of sourcing, right? So any takeaways from that panel, or any other presentation, or get some follow-up notes from?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to chair a very interesting panel with a couple of buyers from different industries, as well as a couple of service providers. And I think the focus of this session was to look at the impact of this shift in our economy, in the way we do business, on sourcing. How are companies adapting their sourcing processes to basically become more competitive and to transform? So the discussion really focused around how we need to work with service providers that are, again, looking at this in terms of how do we enable this transformation, both from a technology, from an operations and a business perspective, and they offer a value-added approach to their clients so that they're able to seamlessly deliver this. And this convergence that's happening, I think, is something that everybody is going through, and the transition phase sometimes becomes a little bit tough to navigate. But I think the whole purpose was to look for providers and clients to work together as partners with win-win economic models that enables this transformation, and this helps smoothen out the journey.
No, great. And Gregory, same question to you. And your panel was around data and analytics, which is obviously at the crux of a lot of this digital transformation, right?
Yeah, the title of the panel, Dan, was "Data is the New Oil," and I want to be clear that, however, data is not responsible for global warming. So I just want to get that out of the way at the beginning. So this is different, okay? But I think, you know, the term "data is the new oil" came from this idea that oil fueled the 20th century explosion of the Industrial Revolution and productivity and access and transportation. The access to information that we have now with data is as absolutely explosive as that in terms of the way it's transforming our culture and what we can do. We're beginning to move away from just generating mountains of data to we're using things like cognitive and AI to be able to parse through that data and get noise out, signal up, and create powerful insights. Those insights are not only allowing you to understand and characterize consumer behaviors or shifts in supplier bases or understand the end-to-end process within a firm, but also allowing you to start predicting and modifying those outcomes in near real time. So that is very exciting for organizations. But of course, the flip side, and it was discussed on the panel as well, is as this is happening, there are things like data privacy rights, differences in geography between the US and the situation in Europe, access to information, hacking, cybersecurity. All these rise to the fore as the yin and yang of how data is transforming the world of work.
So, Gregory, we're behind, the event's behind us. We've had a series of kind of webinars leading up to that as well. And now we're forward thinking. People are starting to think about the end of year. Connect that to what's going to happen over the next year or so. What should people be focusing on over the next 6 to 12 months?
So, Dan, at the Outsource Institute, one of the things we plan to do is to actually sponsor a series of webinars and really think tank work sessions where people who were thought leaders during the conference can anchor a topic that was resonant with the folks that were there and allow the membership worldwide. We have thousands of members who are not able to attend these conferences. Allow them to have access to that information, insight, and join the conversation. Because some of the key things that Anupam, you and I have discussed this morning in this discussion are things that are topics that are very burning platform priority, top of mind for leaders on both the buy side and the sell side of the digital services marketplace. And people want to get engaged and get involved. So topics like how can companies and their suppliers partner together? Topics like how do you establish a logical enterprise roadmap when you have so many different options out there in terms of technology and processors to focus? These are things that people want to have some further discussion on, and we plan to host those events going forward to give people an opportunity to continue the conversation.
No, thanks, Gregory. And Anupam, how about some any final words from you? Any advice to folks that may be watching this that missed the event?
Well, first of all, I think the event was, of course, a great success because of the feedback we got from the audience and the participation we got. But more importantly, I think this is the beginning of I think it's what's going to be a very interesting journey. And the whole conference, I think, the emphasis of it was around how companies need to, first of all, understand the market dynamics within the industry in terms of what's changing and what are the drivers for the transformation. And then they need to translate that in terms of how I build a roadmap and what that roadmap should look like to enable that transformation. And finally, they need to think about who should they work with? How should they build this ecosystem of partnerships that can enable that? So I think the conference touched upon each area of that transformation journey, and I think we've just begun this. So I think hopefully in the next year's conference, we're going to cover some more advanced topics and help our audience get to their ultimate destination where they are successful and they can outcompete and thrive in this digital economy.
Yeah, thank you. No, I agree, and I think I said at the event, you know, this was direction. So I agree. This is just the beginning of the conversation, and as Gregory mentions, the conversation will continue beyond the event. And for those that are looking for more than just some information, and they're really looking for some proactive help, either on the buy side around digital transformation roadmap, or on the sell side, figuring out your go-to-market strategy around this. As I mentioned earlier, Gregory's running our digital transformation practice now here, and we can do let us know. But in the meantime, thank you again to both of you. Both of you were instrumental in putting this agenda together with my team. And it's clear to me after speaking to people over the last couple of weeks since the event that we hit this thing on the head. I've had people come up to me and congratulate me on finding the real industry direction of where things are going, and really people getting excited about the conversation. So thanks again to you both.
Take care. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
See you soon, guys. Bye now.